Microsoft has made many successful products over the last 40 years, from Windows and Office to the Xbox or Surface, along with many more. But they've had their fair share of failures over the years too. Most notably, the Windows Phone, which never captured any notable market share before being shelved. Mixer, the live streaming platform Microsoft acquired in August of 2016, made to compete with Twitch, was subsequently shut down only 4 years later in July of 2020. However, in today's video, we'll be focusing on Microsoft's $300 million disaster that was the Zune MP3 player made to compete with the iPod. The year is 2006. The Enron executives are found guilty of fraud, YouTube is bought by Google, and Nintendo launched the Wii. While all of this is happening, Microsoft was rushing to release its newest flagship product by Christmas in order to compete with their arch nemesis, Apple. We should start off this journey with finding out why the Zune wasn't successful and how big of a failure it actually was. Now, there are many reasons why this product failed this spectacularly, so let's go through each of them one by one, looking at each domino that fell on the next, resulting in an almost $300 million loss for the tech giant. Interestingly enough, none of these reasons were its quality. The Zune was actually quite well put together in terms of software and hardware. However, its good quality was not enough to change the tides in terms of its terrible public perception in the marketplace when being compared to other products, especially the iPod. To understand the largest reason for its inevitable downfall, we need to travel back to 2001 and explore the current climate of technology during that time period. Microsoft wasn't paying much attention to the media player space in 2001, when suddenly the now famous iPod was released and completely changed the average person's relationship with music. Not only was Apple backing the product, but the iPod also had what I consider to be one of the most brilliant marketing campaigns of any product in this category ever. You may remember Steve Jobs getting on stage and saying the words,
"This amazing little device holds 1,000 songs. And it goes right in my pocket."
This market development surprised the executives at Microsoft, but it wasn't until 2006 when they would finally come out with the original Zune, their answer to Apple's iPod, a whole 5 years after Apple began gobbling up all the market share. In 2009, Microsoft came out with the Zune HD, their answer to Apple's iPod Touch, again being a whole 2 years late. Quotes from that time period mention a market share in the single digits for the Zune over its entire lifespan. As you can see, Microsoft's timing was pretty much the worst it could have been. On top of this, only a year after the original Zune was released, Apple would start the smartphone revolution, all but replacing our media players with our phones. This development, combined with Microsoft being late to the party, contributed to the Zune's eventual failure, but that wasn't all that happened. Toshiba, one of the largest Japanese tech giants, can be considered as the birthplace of media players as we know them. You might not know this, but Toshiba invented the technology making them even possible in the first place. The 1.8-inch HDD, or more commonly known as a micro hard drive, has been a key component in the rise of MP3 and MP4 players of the era. Toshiba showed off their new tech to an Apple employee without even having a use case for it yet. Seeing the potential in the new technology, Apple made an exclusive deal with Toshiba to license those micro hard drives for their new iPod lineup. This lucky meeting led to the development of the iPod and guaranteed Apple a head start in the media player space. I couldn't find much information about when the exclusivity agreement was coming to an end, but in 2003, Toshiba set out to develop a media player of their own, the Gigabeat. In May of 2006, an updated Toshiba Gigabeat under the name Gigabeat S was released. The final product looks somewhat familiar, doesn't it? Yep, you're guessing correctly. Microsoft came in, made a deal with Toshiba to develop a media player of their own, and slap their logo on it. Development started right away under the name Toshiba 1089, which is known thanks to the FCC filing. Microsoft was desperate to rush the Zune out the door in order to compete in the upcoming Christmas season of 2006. So the first Microsoft Zune ended up being a reskinned and slightly changed Toshiba Gigabeat S. A couple years earlier before these developments, to be exact in 2004, Microsoft came out with a certification for media players called PlaysForSure, which was meant to certify the compatibility between a media player and Windows. The puzzling thing here is that the original Zune was not certified with PlaysForSure. Contrary to what you might think after hearing me say all that, the operating system and OS were quite well received at the time, being pretty refined and convenient to use. It was so well made and liked, in fact, that Microsoft, upon setting out to develop the Windows Phone operating system, decided to take the text-based interface of the Zune as the main inspiration for its look and overall feel. However, the fact remained that it didn't support everything the iPod did and contributed to its bad public perception. Now, most people know how iTunes works. You search for a song, purchase it for 99 cents, and then you transfer it to your iPod and you're done. But what did Microsoft do here? They felt the need to innovate, and the solution they came up with was actually way ahead of its time. They created the Zune Pass, which would cost $15 a month and came with the following features. You got unlimited music, which allowed you to stream any song just as we're able to do now with Spotify or Apple Music. The second feature was quite strange if you've never heard of it, but can be considered as an interesting approach to music consumption. Because internet access was more limited back then than it is now, Microsoft wasn't all too confident putting all of their eggs into the Zune Pass basket. So they came up with Keep 10. Each month, the subscriber got to keep 10 of their downloaded tracks. Keeping the songs meant the subscriber could download them to their computer, burn them to disks, strangely enough only up to 7 times, convert them to another format, and sync them to as many Zune devices as they wanted. These tracks had unlimited plays even after the Zune Pass expired or the subscription got cancelled. You might think to yourself that this could have been great. I mean, it was basically Spotify before Spotify ever got big. However, most people found this approach to be annoying, and they didn't get the Keep 10 aspect since most of us back then still weren't used to paying monthly subscriptions as we are today. Not that I'm happy about getting $10 removed from my wallet every month though. The subscription wasn't the only available option though. You could buy Zune credits, which are a proprietary currency allowing their users to buy songs on the marketplace. The only problem, Microsoft reinvented the wheel again and made it way too inconvenient for anybody wanting to buy music. You had to buy at least $5 worth of credits at a time, meaning you were nearly always stuck with extra credits you couldn't really spend on anything that you wanted. With iTunes already being as convenient as it was, Microsoft didn't really do themselves any favors with this monetization system. Now, the marketing was absolutely atrocious as well. From the tagline, "Welcome to the social," which sounds like a boomer's attempt at appealing to a younger audience, to the absolutely hilarious main colorway, which was shit brown. Not black, not gray, but duty brown. All of these dominoes came tumbling down in March of 2011 when it was finally time to say goodbye to the Zune product lineup. Microsoft subsequently discontinued production, with a spokesperson telling Bloomberg they weren't planning on announcing any new Zune products in the future, but would still continue supporting the existing ecosystem. Later the same year, a new notification popped up on the Zune.net support website saying, quote, "We recently announced that going forward, Windows Phone will be the focus of our mobile music and video strategy, and that we will no longer be producing Zune players." But again, assuring their users that they would still be honoring the warranty until the end, and again stating that all Zune-related services would still be accessible. Over the next 3 years, all services did in fact remain online and completely usable. But of course, it had to come to an end at some point. The day marking the official and final death of the Zune was the 15th of November 2015, over 3 years after the last Zune was ever manufactured. But as we'll find out in a bit, this final moment was short-lived, as a small community came together to provide a way to keep using their favorite media player. Having heard all of that, you might think the Zune was a failure through and through, but while researching this video, I encountered a very loyal Zune following online, with some people who got it when it first released never actually having stopped using them. There are even some community members who discovered the Zune fairly recently and still fell in love with it despite it having been discontinued over 10 years ago. Surprisingly enough, it's very cherished online in very specific communities. So much in fact that people have dedicated a lot of their time and effort entirely for free just to replace the services that were lost on the 15th of November in 2015. The internet does what the internet does, restoring a large portion of the Zune's online capability to the point where you'd be hard-pressed to spot a difference between the internet refresh of the software and the original if you were handed one today. Why do some people absolutely swear on this 16-year-old device? Well, there are several reasons. Zunes have surprisingly good UI. Even in 2023, it looks a lot like the Windows Phone did. Despite what it sounds like, the Windows Phone was known for the very beautiful, clean, and most importantly, very fluent user interface. The same goes for the Zune. It really does look like something that could have been released 3 to 5 years ago, and definitely not in the mid-2000s. After asking the Zune community on Reddit, they were nice enough to share their passion for the Zune with all of us, and I'd like to share some of their insights with you. A lot of what was said in the Reddit thread was about the design of the product itself, along with the interface and how they thought it was even superior to the iPods of their time. Most Zune community members also enjoyed a very novel feature. The normal Zunes came with an FM radio receiver, making them tiny portable radios, which people greatly appreciate. The Zune HD was actually one of the smallest HD radios ever made. There are some users who miss this technology and love the Zune for being able to receive and play high-quality radio broadcasts. Along with this feature, the Spotify-like subscriptions are also a point that the fans absolutely loved. Having access to new music constantly is a great thing. Remember, back in 2006, subscription-based services were only just starting to emerge. On top of that, the social aspect of the Zune is also fondly remembered. The Reddit community shared memories of finding out what other people listen to with the Zune social media network. A lot of people discovered new songs that they otherwise wouldn't have without this feature. Another notable mention here would be the limited edition designs, which allowed choosing the ideal player for your taste. Finally, the Zune launched with a storage capacity of 30 gigabytes, which was far bigger than a lot of what was out there at the time. Microsoft also made sure to integrate the Zune with the Xbox and multimedia devices such as TVs, making content consumption a lot more pleasant than the mid-sized blurry Zune screen. With both the radio and subscription functionality, the Zune seemed to be a product closer to our modern music world than it was to its own time period. It seemed to exist in this weird limbo with the perfect storm of bad timing and rushed decisions. Even though Microsoft came out with the Zune at the worst possible time to do so, I still think they deserve recognition for trying something new and putting their name on it and continuing to support it long after it was discontinued. It's crazy to think that Microsoft basically came out with a hardware precursor to Spotify in 2006, over 5 years before Spotify started operating globally. Thank you guys for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.